Comedy can be very effective at helping us to empathize with people who we don't know or understand. Good comedy will expose absurdities. It will make us think about why things are the way they are. If you can laugh at yourself or feel bad for something that you had previously taken for granted, that's a good reaction, and it shows the effectiveness of a comedic expose on terrible situations. So Piers Morgan, on his show Piers Morgan Uncensored, recently hosted a Egyptian political commentator and comedian, Mr. Bassem Youssef. And this guy's quite fascinating. He is actually a surgeon. He practiced for 13 years in Egypt, and then during the Egyptian revolt in 2011, he started making political satire videos for YouTube, and then he ended up kind of switching careers into comedy and political satire. And he comes on Piers Morgan's show here, and what he does is quite remarkable in the way that he exposes the way the Western world and media sees the Palestinian people, and he really brings out what they are suffering, the other side, if you would, of this conflict, where there is a lot of just unseen and uncommemorated suffering and death and repression on the other side. And he uses his incredible wit and some dark comedy to shed light on it. So I'm going to play some clips here and make some comments, and let's see how this goes.
Bassem, it's great to have you back on the program. I wish it was under different circumstances. First of all, what is your reaction to what happened on October the 7th?
Oh, it was terrible, of course. I mean, we kind of get our news kind of also secondhand because, my wife's family, they live in Gaza. They have cousins and uncles there, and their house also was bombed. We haven't been able to communicate with them for the past 3 days. Communication are lost. So we don't know actually what is the, how are they doing, but, we're used to that. I mean, it's just like, it's very repetitive. We're used to that. We're used to them being bombed every time and moving from one place to the other. It's just like those Palestinians, they're very dramatic. Israel killing us. But they never die. I mean, they always come back.
I know I've been guilty of the kind of thing he's talking about, just looking at the Palestinian people as a tragic people. My whole life, that's how I've seen this whole people, this whole situation. There's these tragic people who suffer, who do violence, who suffer retaliation, who live in this very difficult situation, and that's my impression of this nation, of this people. And we become used to tragedy. We become callous to it. We just kind of assume, this group of people suffers in this way. And I think the way that he is bringing out, exposing that mindset is very valuable.
Okay, I will be serious. Now, I will be serious. I was watching your interview with Ben Shapiro, and I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
I think that Ben Shapiro is one of the smartest people who ever walked this earth. He's very, very smart. I follow him, and I believe everything he said.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. Ben Shapiro is so smart. It's like something people feel obliged to say, and I like how he's poking fun of that. Smart is as smart does, and he should have to say smart things. He should have to be right about things to be considered smart. But no, people just, grant him that regardless of the things he says. And in particular on this subject of this current war, Ben Shapiro's been horrible. He's a pretty extremist, violent person on this issue. And so, I like how he's making a dig at that assumption that everyone just kind of grants that, Ben Shapiro's so smart.
And when he came on your show, his solution was, and I quote, his solution was that the solution for this is for Israel to annex Gaza and to kill as many son of bitches as possible to make sure that this will never happen again. And anyone who called for a ceasefire will be a terrorist sympathizer. So God forbid, I don't want to be labeled as a terrorist sympathizer.
I don't know who can look at this situation and say there shouldn't be a ceasefire. People who talk like that are a huge part of the problem. That's the mentality that leads to these attacks and counterattacks and reprisals and the constant, just a never-ending terror that both sides suffer. That's the mentality of the Islamic extremists who say that, no, you can't have peace with Israel, you can't have peace with America, and they repress the factions within their nations that are in support of peace, like HMS has done to the Palestinian Authority and the Fatah Party. This idea of no peace, no ceasefire, there must be retaliation is horrible. It's stupid. It's the cause of this situation.
So I agree with Ben Shapiro. I think we should kill as many son of bitches as possible.
Well, let me.
So
Okay,
far,
but Bassem, let me.
so far, 3,500 people were killed. One third of those 3,500 were children. So my question to Ben Shapiro is, how many more son of bitches do we need to kill so Ben Shapiro is happy?
Well, that's what it comes down to, when you're talking about retaliation, when you're talking about striking back, you're talking about exacting a price to pay for your hurt. You're talking about killing people, and it's usually not very discriminatory of who you're killing. We're not talking about you have to kill this person and this person and this person. No, it's you have to go and you wreak destruction on this people because of what this people did to you. It's a very cruel calculation that occurs in these situations, and he's bringing that out pretty well. Yeah, how many people need to die to satisfy you, to heal your hurt, to fulfill your sense of justice?
The thing is, the question is, what is a proportionate response? Because it has been different from one tier to another. So if you look to this graph, for example, this is the death of Israeli and Palestinians, and it's changing from one year to year. It's like fluctuating like crypto. So my question is today, what is the going rate today for human lives? I mean, 2014 was a great year for Ben Shapiro. 88 Israelis were died, and there was 2,329 Palestinians killed on the other side. That is one Israeli for 27 Palestinians. That is a very good exchange rate. What I'm saying is, what is the exchange rate for today? You guys will be happy. That's my question.
Well, it's not me, guys. I'm not on either side.
No, not you. Like when I say you guys, I say like the people on the other side of that. I know that you don't think like that, Piers. You're one of the good guys.
Man, he's good, and good for Piers Morgan for having him on. He plays this role. I think it's got to be some intention to it, where he kind of lets people say what they have to say and make their points at his expense. That's kind of part of the charm of Piers Morgan, and there's so many videos out there like this. Oh, Piers Morgan getting owned by this guy, Piers Morgan, getting debunked or whatnot. And to his credit, he continues on, and these kinds of things keep on happening, and he plays that part. And that point he makes, man, what's a life worth? We get outraged rightfully over deaths of people like what happened on October 7th. Yet there are so many massacres, so much death that just doesn't receive the same kind of attention, the same kind of outrage, because it's the other. Unfortunately, it's kind of what it comes down to. I think, if we're honest with ourselves, it's the other kind of people, the kind of people who don't elicit that kind of response from the Western world.
I've thought carefully about this because I think it's very tricky for people like me to immerse ourselves into a conflict where we're not directly involved. And I thought carefully about what I feel about this. I feel that the scale of what Hamas did on October the 7th supersedes anything else I've seen in this conflict, really ever. The savagery, the butchery, the slaughter of 1,300 people, the shooting of babies, the 100%. Kidnapping of grandmothers, and so on. So if we can agree on that, which I think is inarguable.
This is what I call a kiss the ring moment. It's like when someone brings up the humanity of the other in one of these foreign policy war type situations, when someone brings up the humanity of the other side, they're presented with this opportunity. Well, now you have to say bad, derogatory things against the official bad guy. It's a tough situation to be put into for someone in the role of Mr. Bassem here, because he's bringing out how many multiples of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Palestinians are getting killed in this conflict. And now he's kind of brought back, well, now you have to condemn this killing of 1,400 Israelis as the worst thing to ever happen ever in this whole conflict. It's kind of it's a pretty powerful challenge, because if you say no, it isn't, then, he'd be labeled as an HMS sympathizer. But if he says, well, yes, it is the worst thing ever, then that downplays the attention he's trying to bring to the many, many more people being killed in these other incidents, and just as a matter of the course of the conflict, who are being killed on the other side. And he handles it pretty well here.
Then the question then becomes, again, about proportion. I don't disagree that there's been a lot of bad stuff on both sides going back historically for decades. But if we agree that this was on a different level altogether, quite deliberately by Hamas, I would ask you, if you were Israel, what would you...
If I was Israel.
If you were Israel and that had happened to you, what would you think would be the appropriate way for the country to respond?
I would do exactly like Israel did, kill as many people as possible, since the world is letting me do it. I mean, I can do it because I can, But the thing is, you know what? I agree with you. And you know what? I'm going to be even ahead of you, because I see the question coming. Do you condemn Hamas for the atrocity? Yes, I condemn Hamas. I condemn Hamas. Hamas is the source of all evil. They are a reason for everything. And you know what? Let's, for a minute, imagine a world without Hamas.
Right.
What will this word look like? Let's give this word a name, and let's name this word the West Bank. Hamas has absolutely no control in the West Bank, and since the beginning of this year, only through August, 37 Palestinian kids were killed. No music festival, no paragliding, no Hamas. Since the occupation of the West Bank, 7,000 Palestinians were killed. No music festival, no paragliding, no Hamas.
Yeah, it's this horrific conundrum that the Palestinian people face. And a lot of downtrodden people in the world have faced this same conundrum, including the Israelis, at times when they were, their existence, their survival was in question in decades past. You have to rise to the occasion with extreme violence to gain a little bit of respect and still a little bit of fear, and pay the price in horrific casualties, but maybe you get to hold on to your land, get a little bit of respect, or you go the other way. You try to peacefully cooperate, but then you get no respect. You get taken advantage of. Settlers invade Palestinian lands in the West Bank. They beat, they murder, they vandalize, they steal. The army and the judicial system is constantly encroaching, taking more and more land. For a lot of the people on the lower end of power in the world, there's just no winning solution. There's no way to come out ahead. And people will say, well, why don't you try nonviolence? And I think we're going to get to that later on in this interview. Well, hopefully you'll know, nonviolence is the way to go, but not because it's going to bring you results. It's not going to preserve your land. It's not going to preserve your freedom. It's not going to preserve your standard of living. It may be the right thing to do, but you pay a price for doing the right thing. It's a cruel, wicked thing, that these people are faced with. They do evil, terrible things to gain a little bit of respect, or you choose the path of nonviolence and just get kicked harder.
I would say I really applaud Israel for doing one thing that no military force in the world does. Because I heard Ben Shapiro and I heard Ron DeSantis, and they said Israel is the only military force in the world that warns civilians before bombing them. How fucking cute. That is so nice of them.
Yeah, and then we applaud the powerful, and we say, oh, isn't that nice? Yeah, you gave them a phone call before you destroyed their house. Or sometimes what they do a warning strike. It's like literally they'll drop a small explosive on the house, and that's supposed to alert the people to get out before the big explosion comes. Now, sometimes that small explosion will go through a roof and kill the people inside. It's such a sick, ugly thing, and the way that's terrorism. That's just evil. When the bad guys do that kind of thing, when they phone people sometime during the day or night and say, get out of your house, we're gonna come and kill you. That's a crime. That's horrible. That's horrifying. That's terroristic activities. But yet when a military, a good old military with soldiers and officers, and especially on the side of America and Israel and Europe, when they do it to the other, the media that backs those institutions applauds them. But for the people on the receiving end, it's horror.
If we agree that for the 14,000 casualties, I mean, who's counting, are human shield, does that mean that every single one of those civilians was standing, obscuring a military target behind them? Because that's a lot of weapons. I mean, Hamas is packing.
No, of course it doesn't. And look,
So there's some collateral damage. Lots of collateral damage.
Yes.
It's fine. Yeah, you kill some to save some, and then kill some more. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
The way the Western world, at least the United States and a lot of European countries, the way they approach this topic, they approach this issue, is so telling of just the moral weakness of this civilization. Just the way we don't seem to care. We make use of tragedy for political means when it suits us, but we don't actually respect humanity and human decency, human rights, just the right to live, the right to have peace, the right to own property. It's a horrible situation that some people in the world are faced with, because the world is unjust, and pretending otherwise is just an exercise in self-congratulation by powerful people.
What would you think would be an appropriate response by Israel to what happened?
Well, these are years of disproportionate responses of Israel.
Right.
Did it solve the solution? Did it solve the problem? Did it work before, so it will work? What will be the surprise this time? What will be the twist that will make this work this time? What will be different this time? Seriously.
Nobody asks what would be an appropriate response when Israel attacks Palestinian territories, because people know that that's wrong. No, you don't respond. You don't have violence to repay the violence. We know that that's a problem when it happens one way, and yet when it happens the other way, we say, well, what's the appropriate response? It's insane, this broken mentality. Like, we get it right only when it's one side doing this and the other side doing that. Then we understand it. Then we get, yes, that violent retaliation is wrong. And we condemn terrorist organizations and extremists and violence. We say, where's the nonviolence? But when it's the other way around, we say, well, what's the appropriate response? And knowing that appropriate response means death and destruction on the other side.
Ben Shapiro once tweeted, not even about Gaza, about the West Bank, when Israel continued to build the illegal settlement. He said, 2017, Israel likes to build things, and Arabs, not Palestine, not Hamas, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage.
Yeah, I thought that was very
the Israeli defense minister, he said, those are human animals. And the thing is, Ben Shapiro should know better, because, long before the Holocaust, before Jewish people were thrown in the gas chambers, the Nazi propaganda called them rats. Now, as a human being, I will never accept that another human being being thrown into a gas chamber, but a rat, kill 10. Kill 1,000, 3,500.
Gosh, that's dark, but we deserve it. I mean, we need to have our faces shoved in the reality of what we're doing. Sometimes it just takes some really ugly, dark, uncomfortable talk to get people to realize what it's like for someone else when we have so much trouble empathizing with other people.
You know what their stated aim is? Their stated aim is to eradicate and wipe out Hamas. They believe Hamas are living predominantly in northern Gaza. They also are aware they're living amongst civilians. So it's an incredibly difficult thing. As I said in my monologue, it is very, very difficult to see how they do this without massive collateral damage.
No one accepts collateral damage in their own country. It's just so disgusting the way we look at other people, and people who aren't, I guess, part of the first world. They aren't part of the people that matter, people who can become collateral damage.
I don't think there's great leadership on either side. Where is the Nelson Mandela figure here to come through all this hatred on both sides?
Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, where is that
Nelson
figure?
Mandela.
Yeah, here we go. Where is the non-violence? Where's the Palestinian Nelson Mandela? I've heard this before. Where's the Palestinian Gandhi? It's kind of a dumb question when you consider the context of those historical figures. Nelson Mandela was able to participate in a joint political system where he became president of a united South Africa. There was no situation like there is in Israel and Palestine. Like, I guess Piers Morgan is suggesting that Palestinians and Israelis should become one nation and they should have a Palestinian president. This hypothetical Nelson Mandela character is kind of a silly, I think even bad faith question to ask that kind of thing. I mean, there's plenty. There's hundreds of peace activists on the Palestinian side. There's hundreds of peace activists on the Israeli side. Where's the Israeli Nelson Mandela who is going to bring about a solution where equal rights to everybody? Well, there's plenty of great politicians and activists thinking that way, but they're nowhere near the kind of power that it would take to do such a thing, because that's just not the way this is going. You know, there were partners on both sides of the issue in South Africa who worked together to make that happen, to make that that lasting peace, to bring the sides together and end the apartheid and have a free and open election. We're nowhere close to that happening in Israel. There's no way that some Israeli or Palestinian Nelson Mandela figure could even arise. That's just not a smart question.
So if I can understand this correctly, basically Israel is doing this to pressure the Palestinian community in Gaza to turn against Hamas. Is that right?
I'm sure that's part of it, yes.
That's part of it. So this is exactly what terrorist organizations do, because terrorist organizations will have no chance beating a whole nation in battle. So they terrorize and they kill the civilians in order to spread fear and terror so they can turn against their government to change their policy or to resign. You have just compared Israel with ISIS.
No, I haven't. I don't see any comparison between
It's
Israel
going to be
and
the
ISIS.
headlines tomorrow. Piers Morgan,
it's
Israel
not.
is ISIS.
And that's part of the charm of Piers Morgan. He keeps putting himself in these kind of situations. He brings on very smart people who put him in these tough positions, and everyone gets to watch. And I guess that's kind of part of his profession, part of what he does. And thankfully, through his show, we get to see great exchanges like this, where someone like Mr. Bassem Youssef sheds a lot of light on the suffering of this very small, weak, and downtrodden people. And you know, for all of the attention that Israel has rightfully gotten, all the sympathy that they have rightfully gotten for what they have suffered, there is another side that also suffers horrifically and deserves attention and remorse and sorrow for what they are suffering. If you're going to have a minute of silence for this side, you owe a minute or 10 minutes or however many minutes it would take to make an equivalent for that other side, because people matter. I'm going to play a couple more clips, and then if you want, you can click the link below, watch the full interview. It's really quite impressive. Please leave your comments below, tell me what you think of all this, and I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.
The thing is, this is the problem. Israel always victimizes itself, and I have never seen a victim putting their oppressor under siege and bombing them 24/7.
Bassem, I'm going to have to let you go because we've been on there with you for 40 minutes.
Okay,
now.
bye-bye.
Right? But listen,
bye-bye.
I would like to talk to you again,
Bye-bye.
and thank you for joining the program. I appreciate it.
Oh, by the way, my wife's family is all right, and they sent us a house. It's bombed. It's beautiful. It's going to be a good like Halloween theme. So
Well,
thank you.
I'm very sorry for what your family are going through in Gaza, and I mean that very sincerely.
By the way, I don't know. I don't know I don't know him. By the way, I haven't actually met them. They didn't even come to my wedding. They couldn't because they are stuck in Gaza.
Okay.
And she never saw them because Gaza is not a destination.
Bassem, as I say,
we hear their voices. And it's they die. It's fine. It's fine.
Bassem, I wish your family all the very best. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
I don't. Thank you.